आप बाकी सब कमलेश भैया बाकी सबको म्यूट करके और रिकॉर्डिंग शुरू कर दें, इसके बाद में वो आ जाएंगे 5-7 मिनट।
आप हर्षद पारेख जी, अब आप अपने आप को अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं और टॉक स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं।
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Good evening, friends. Truly speaking, I have not prepared anything for this program today because I thought Chaitanya ji would start and then he may ask me some questions and we can have a dialogue. So this topic, new mind, old mind topic, I will speak about what I have learned from my own experience. I will like to tell you something which I felt many years ago, that when I went to America, I did not know what is called this shampoo. I thought it was kind of a hair oil. So one day I bought this shampoo, and after taking bath, I use this shampoo like a hair oil, and my hair became very sticky. And I kept it like that. And then next day I washed my hair properly. And then when I went out, I had a strange experience as if I had no head. I was just walking like that. So probably what happened, that maybe in my hair there were a lot of dandruff over the years, and this shampoo removed all that dandruff, and my head felt very light. And so what I am trying to say is that only when such a thing happens in our life that we feel something different in our way of looking, and we feel very light in our uh, we feel very light and feel that as if all that burden which we were carrying before, all that burden has gone away. Because when we are carrying this burden, we don't know. We think that it is very natural, normal to have problems like fear or anger or jealousy. But only when something new happens to our brain, and it shows in the way our life changes, in the way we even look at the tree or the people, something new happens. Then only we know that such a thing exists. So that was my life. When I went to America, I had many problems, all kinds of problems. But after reading Krishnamurti book in 1972, and then I began to look very curiously at my own mind, that I was not trying to understand what Krishnamurti was saying, but was very curious to look at my own mind. And then it became very interesting. The life became very interesting. Some changes started happening. And so I felt that if I have to describe my life, I would say before Krishnamurti, one kind of life. And after I came to Krishnamurti, another kind of life where I could really feel the change, real change, you know. So I don't know, Chaitanya ji would like to say something now about the topic, and maybe then we can have a dialogue. Chaitanya ji has come, right?
Thanks, sir. Chaitanya sir, please start.
I think we have already started the dialogue. No? It's about.
Sir,
We have not started.
we were waiting for you, sir. We were waiting for you. As per decision taken earlier, you will speak for 15, 20, 25 minutes, and then Mr. Harshad Parekh will speak. This was the format already decided by us. So please continue.
Basically, you asked me to talk about the possibility of a new mind and the old mind, right? That was the theme that you suggested to me, I believe, Sushilji, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, what I feel is that the new mind that Krishnaji talks about is generally, it is for me something that I cannot explore because I don't know what the new mind is. We can only perhaps explore the ways of the old mind. Krishnaji uses the word the old mind, the brain, even consciousness synonymously sometimes. For him, perhaps the old mind is the part of the brain which is conditioned. It's a mind that reacts from the knowledge that it has gathered. See, the old mind is a result of gathering. Psychologically and physically, it has evolved through gathering. It has gathered knowledge, all kinds of experiences, prejudices, through sensations. And on the basis of all this, it reacts. There is a challenge that comes from the outer world, or there is a challenge inwardly, there is a challenge. And the old mind has a habit of reacting to that challenge, to responding to that challenge in a mechanical way, because that's all it knows. Its responses come from the field of the known, from what it has understood so far. Krishnaji also uses the word mind and consciousness synonymously. And there's also one thing that should be mentioned here is that although some psychologists have divided this consciousness or mind into different layers, some of them are known to us, some of them are not known, they remain, and they call it conscious, unconscious, and subconscious. For Krishnaji, all this was one single unitary movement. So, but still, we know the conditioned part. Our reactions, our lives, our thoughts are all coming from the conditioned part of the brain. It also seems to me that when he uses the word mind, he also refers to the conditioned brain, perhaps indicating that there is a part, there is more to this consciousness than just the conditioned brain that we have. There is more to it, which is either lying dormant. We have not been able to tap it because uh, we are obsessed with the activities of the conscious mind all the time, so that faculty remains untapped. So we need to look at how the old mind functions, how it is tethered to memory, to past, how it is the result of gathering, how it has evolved through time, how mechanical, repetitive it is, caught up in its own habitual ways. And uh, I don't know whether he had described the new mind very precisely, very clearly, but he does point to the fact that there is a possibility for the old ways, the old brain, the old ways which are represented by the old brain, old ways of thinking habits, they may come to an end. And I just listened to the last part of what Harshadji was saying, last few sentences in which he talked about observation, listening. So the capacity to do all that, observation, listening, and so on, it seems to me it is also in some field somewhere within us. I mean, that same noisy brain, which is burdened with all that it knows, somewhere also has the capacity to, like proprioception, it can perhaps understand itself, can watch itself. But that watching, that listening is something that happens very rarely to us because of this constant noise which is going on. And when that happens, when there are moments when we can watch something silently without bringing in, without allowing our past knowledge to interfere, during those moments, it seems in that same consciousness, something new happens. Something new happens. Something which is very different from the way in which the old has been expressing itself. And that newness comes when there is a silent listening, not only of something happening outside, but also to what is happening inside the brain itself, the thought processes, the constant chattering. There are moments when the mind begins to, I'm using the word, the mind begins to listen just for the sake of uh, expressing myself, for want of a better expression. It seems that the same mind, somewhere the capacity that had been lying dormant, it surfaces and we begin to listen to ourselves. That same chattering brain becomes quiet, begins to listen to its own activities, observe its own activities. One of the most stubborn ways of which the old mind is very enamored, is very fond of, is perhaps its obsession with judgment, whenever it looks at something, listens to something, it wants to pass a verdict on it, wants to deny it, or wants to like it, or dislikes it. But as I said, in that same consciousness, there's a capacity of silent watching in which no verdict is passed on what is watched, what is heard. One just listens and observes silently, and all the understanding that perhaps we need in our life, it takes place during those silent moments of non-judgmental watching and listening. So the question that comes to my mind is it that same certain aspects of our consciousness that we are not familiar with, that we are not using, can we awaken them? Can we, instead of identifying with a chattering, perpetually chattering mind, can we just start looking and listening? Because that, in my opinion, is a movement of the new mind. Old mind also has another important characteristic. It is most of the time giving birth to its own opposite. It wants to do something at the same time, it doesn't want to do it. It has a desire, and there is also a movement that condemns that desire, or which has another desire, and both desires are kind of mutually exclusive. So, in the old ways of thinking, the old brain, if I may use that expression, it is caught up in conflict most of the time. It watches and it doesn't watch, it wants and it doesn't want. It is always at loggerheads with itself, it is at war with itself. It seems that uh, I don't have just one self. The word self is also used as a synonym for consciousness as we know it. Seems that I don't just have one self, there are several selves that dwell within me. So I keep contradicting myself. I contain multitudes because if there was just one self, there would be no conflict. It, the self, the mind as we know it, as I know it, needs its opposite so that it can have a fight, it can have a conflict. Moves in the corridor of opposites every moment. I have a feeling of boredom. I look for something exciting. I've had enough of excitement. Now I want few moments of peace. So I retire into a corner, want to sit quietly. There's always this demand made by what is not, what Shelley calls we look before and after. The mind has a habit of looking before and looking after, looking at the past, looking at the future, and pine for what's not. It keeps longing for what is not there. That's a very typical habit that the mind or the old mind or consciousness, whatever we call it, has. So when he says there's a possibility of a new mind, perhaps he's pointing to or is trying to awaken in the reader, in the listener, capacity to silently observe, this capacity to look inward, to become inward looking. The old has a habit of searching for things in the outside world, answers, concessions, solutions. Maybe he's saying that look within, look at the activities of the mind. That's part of self knowledge. That's the purpose of real education. And the mind begins to show interest in itself, its own activities, stops looking, not that it stops looking outside, but it learns to look without thinking, the noise of explanation, the noise of justification and condemnation. So, whether it looks without or it looks within, can it do so silently? There's a very beautiful uh, quotation from Krishnaji in which he says, when you want to understand something, you look, and when you look, your look must be silent. I think that's the movement of the new mind, because the old mind either doesn't look, it looks through its past knowledge, its looking is noisy, and he's asking whether it is possible to look without all that noise, with a mind which is empty of its experience. There's a very popular expression in Zen Buddhism. I think it's called Shoshin, which means the beginner's mind, where the teacher throws a challenge at the new uninitiated disciple and says, can you look at your life with a beginner's mind? A beginner's mind is a mind that is like a clean slate. It doesn't have any residue from the past. So perhaps when he says the new mind, he means the beginner's mind. No, but for me, I don't look at it in that absolute sense in which the mind has been able to wipe, erase the knowledge and memory completely, because that's a demand that becomes very, it becomes a very exacting demand. Very, one can be under a lot of pressure if one turns that absolute state into a goal. What I think is possible is one's relationship with the knowledge, with the experiences, with the memories, it can undergo a change. They may not go away completely, but my reaction, earlier I used to react to it purely on the basis of my experience, knowledge, and now it is possible for me to look at all that, at any new challenge, setting all that aside, which means they are still there, but their hold on my mind, on my life is not so strong. So there may still be a memory, there may still be some thought related to a challenge that has suddenly come up, but I may still look at it afresh and not look purely on the basis of what I know about the challenge. I think that seems uh, within the realm of the possible to me, and not to completely erase my memories about it, my experience and knowledge about it. But it is possible to set that aside. There can be a temporary abeyance of, or mm, suspension. Temporarily, it can be suspended. That I think is possible. When you say, look, listen, it is possible for my mind to look and listen carefully, and not only to what you are saying, but also to what my mind is doing during those moments, how it is reacting, how it is asserting itself. So that is a state with which I am familiar. So basically, uh, that's all. That more or less sums up what I wanted to say. That the old mind, the old brain has certain habits, experiences, it clings to them. The moment I can look at its clinging with a freshness, with silence, the new comes into being. Otherwise, I remain under the influence of the old and carry on with a mechanical, repetitive life. And there is no creativity in that. I think I would like to end here because that's how I understand Krishnji's teachings on what the old mind is, and his invitation to explore if there's a possibility of coming upon a new consciousness. Because again, need to look why he's not just talking about the individual consciousness. He perhaps is trying to imply that this very individual consciousness can become the foundation for eventually for the new world order, for a new society. Because if there's a transformation in the individual, eventually it will lead to a large scale transformation in the human psyche itself. I think that's all, Harshadji, I wanted to say. Sushilji,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you very much. May I request Chhabra ji if he can throw some light on old mind and new mind, and then last Harshad Parekh sir. My request Chhabra ji to you. Am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, you wanted to continue? Parekh sir, you wanted to continue?
Yeah, I can.
Okay, okay, sir. Then we will ask Chhabra ji later on. Thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Chaitanya. It was very good what you said, very slowly and very systematically. You you talked about the old mind or old brain, which is full of thinking and lots of conflicts, many problems like fear, anger, all that is the old mind. And there is in the old mind, there is intellect is also there, and it can solve many problems of our daily living, which are connected with how to build bridges or make machines, make our life very comfortable. So that is in the old mind, but that is in the field of thinking and intellect. But the new mind, which I feel is coming out from that plane of thinking and coming into a different dimension than thinking, which we can call it as awareness. And this awareness, which happens in our life, then we really feel the beauty of that, which can see everything, all the what the thinking is doing, how anger is arising, or fear, loneliness, jealousy, all that thing, what is happening on the plane of thinking can be seen very clearly in this new dimension, a new mind, awareness. And when that awareness is very pure, then there is no sense of this this thing which we call I or me. And then there is a kind of a space, and everything is so clear, so beautiful, as if new, and there is no division between that observer and the observed. That belongs to the new mind, which is free from what all the knowledge which we have gathered. So when Krishnaji was dying, at that time he told somebody that you don't know what you have missed. And he says some vast emptiness. So such a thing is possible for human being. And generally what happens to most of us, and even before reading Krishnamurti, I was also going round and round in thinking only, and did not know that there is a different way of looking, listening. And what Krishnaji said in words, which is which transcends actually the whole thing is non-verbal, but Krishnaji was able to express something through words. And if we look at it within within ourselves with great curiosity, passion, honesty, to look from where all these problems come, like anger or fear or loneliness. So when that really happens in our life, we are very, very curious, not in order to be free, but just curiosity. Then there is this possibility of coming to that new dimension, new mind, which can see clearly how problems arise. And that seeing is itself the, the action. Perception is the action. And so all this thing is we can describe, even Krishnaji can describe. For many, many years he was describing, and people were listening year after year. But when we really see it for ourselves, then there is no need to listen to anybody. Listening can go on in our life. And in this, there is no authority, and nobody we can say that this is the truth. Truth is not in the words, it is in the way of this silent looking, listening, and this is really an amazing thing. When it happens, then everything is beautiful, looks very, very strange. There is no loneliness, no boredom. One can look at the insects, how they move, look at the birds, look at the clouds, the colors in the sky, and also we can see our own mind, how it is changing, like the colors on a soap bubble. If and everything is reflected on that soap bubble, our mind is like that. It is constantly, continuously changing thoughts, feelings, and one can look at it from this new dimension called awareness. And then in that looking, there is a learning happens. So learning is not through reading books, gathering knowledge, but looking with curiosity, with silence, whatever is happening, which is telling everything. So that is the challenge which exists for humanity. And I don't think it is a mass movement. Individual people who are deeply interested and they can really look at their own mind, not talk so much about Krishnamurti or other people, but looking at ourselves clearly. So for such people, this new dimension is possible, and maybe that is the part of evolution. Like there was intellect, and then there was instinct in animals, and then in human beings we have intellect. But beyond intellect, there is this intelligence which can work beautifully, and intellect can function properly under the guidance of intelligence. But intellect itself is full of problems. So why we have, though intellect has helped us so much in making our life very easy, but it has also created so many problems because intellect is partial and it is used for selfish purpose. So that is why it is very dangerous, intellect. Only when the people in charge, like politicians or social workers or scientists, when they come to this new dimension, intelligence, then only there is a possibility for creating heaven on earth. Otherwise, we all will be destroyed by this intellect, which is used for selfish purpose. So the new mind is a very clear mind which can really look at the old mind clearly. But the old mind has no idea of what new mind is, because the old mind may be very intellectual mind, and that intellectual mind will doubt about the existence of this new mind. And some people will say, very articulate people will say that this new mind is a product of old mind only, But only when a person really comes to this new mind, new dimension, then only such a person can understand what Buddha said or what other people, great people, have said through words, but what is behind the words, what is the deeper meaning, that can be seen very quickly only when there is this new mind which doesn't use intellect to understand. It can see directly anything of spiritual kind. It doesn't need too much thinking. But without that, without this new mind, thinking will create many conflicts, lots of pleasure and pain. It is like if you are moving on a straight line, you can't move on a straight line. If you fall on the left side, and then if you are falling on the left side, you try to then control yourself and try to fall on the right hand side. So this kind of conflict, pleasure, pain, duality exists in the old mind, but in the new mind, it is moving straight. There is not much conflict. It can see things very, very clearly. So, okay, I have finished. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Chhabra sir, do you want to say something? Chhabra?
Sushil ji, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we are hearing.
I heard you last time, but I just got up to switch on the heater. It's pretty cold here. So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, I heard this been very, if you listen to this meditative reflections, and it's this is like listening to music for me. It's sometimes easier to play the music than to talk about music, I feel. See, the difficulty, the moment we start talking about anything, we have words, and words are always referential, always move, as Chaitanya pointed out, in the corridor of opposites. And here, when we talk of old mind and new mind, so one wonders whether there is that opposition or what is it? I mean, we seeing the old mind, somebody pointed out that, but do we know what it is? The mind as we actually experience in everyday living. And with all its contradictions, conflicts, being, remaining in observation, never remaining anchored in awareness, in direct contact with whatever is happening, rather quickly sliding back into thinking about instead of remaining in contact, in touch. That's the mind we have. Now, is the so-called new mind the opposite of it, or is it something that we don't know? In the very understanding of this, there may be a possibility of transcending or negating what the negation of the load, burden, as Harshad at the beginning was talking about. Something happens to you, and that is, you narrated a very cute experience of his dandruff and shampoo. That it was not planned that way, but it happened. And then the effect, curious and feeling light, and that lightness, that's what you are expressing that way. But the burden, what is it we do? We carry on with the burden till we realize that it's a burden. And if at all, we become a bit of aware of burden, we think in terms of what can take it away, or how I can get it unburdened. Somewhere, it's the same mind which is struggling, and the mind that has created the burden. I think that is one difficulty that the mind, even intellectually we have difficulty in understanding. The mind that creates the burden cannot possibly unburden it.
That's right.
That's a difficulty, and all our struggle is probably because of that. This fundamental misunderstanding, that we are struggling to do something with the same tool that is actually creating the problem. And until it dawns, and how would it dawn on us? So again, it will be, thinking of trying to find out some method, some way of coming upon that magical understanding that will eliminate this. But can one say that in this so-called, whatever the mind, we call it old mind, I would say just the brain with all its movement of conditioning, capacity to be aware of things, something out of this world. That capacity is very much there. I think Chaitanya used that word proprioception, aware of itself. Now that aware of things, aware of surroundings, and awareness of what the mind itself is doing, this capacity is also there. Why is it that is missed out? And we somehow pay very little attention to that. This is we also operate it. It also is experienced every day, in small ways. but somehow this has not been, this doesn't get nurtured. And this is where the, the beginning, as I think Chaitanya mentioned about also beginner's mind. So to look at anything afresh, to learn about anything, one has to start with observation. And with that, not depending on any ideas, anything one has heard, anything one has imagined. One has to start there to learn anything, to, the first step is that only. And why is it that is it that the thought, this mechanical process of processing things in language, in conclusions, in capturing this whole, I think, process of capturing, which is initially required probably to be able to function in this world, for survival and so on, that it becomes so powerful that the other capacity of making the first step and not rushing to jump to form an image or coming to some conclusion or formulating something. That is somehow is missed. And this, coming back to that, maybe
सर आपका वॉइस ब्रेक हो रहा है.
Yeah.
may open the door to understanding. Yeah. I don't know. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. This can happen. Yeah. So this is, I think, it's it's an understanding of the functioning of the mind in daily living, in relationship. I think relationship is a key, or that is where the old mind gets its strength, or this mind gets the way it functions, the way it's a usual way of functioning of the mind is gets its fuel, and that is where that is a stage, I think, where this learning can actually happen. This awareness can, if given a chance, it has the capacity to transform. That in the way in our relationships, it's the past and future coming into it. And we can see that intellectually, we can understand that this is what prevents us from actually coming in contact with each other. Then why is it that we even when we understand it somewhere, why is it that we're not able to listen to the other, just listen and be aware of all the reactions. And in that very awareness, then those reactions will not be able to dominate, are not able to dominate. They have no power. The moment there's awareness actually seems to burn, or it's a flame where all prejudices, all reactions, all so-called momentum of the past loses its strength, and there's a possibility of newness coming into being. When that is newness is not opposite. I wonder whether it's I don't see it as opposite of the old. It's the way mind functions. If its ways, the falseness of its ways is seen and negated, it's not that it's bringing another pattern. These are patterns. When the patterns are negated, when the very mechanism that is that what you will call, or one may call the new? I'll end here. If there is
Thank you, Chhabra ji. Thank you very much, Chhabra ji. Now, floor is open for asking any question. Any question from the participants? Dinesh, please continue.
If anybody wants to ask, he can unmute himself and then ask.
And after Vagmare, Mr. Pradeep Verma will ask.
Anybody wanting to ask, he can unmute himself.
Yeah, I want to discuss with, I want to go into dialogue on this subject. Is, as pointed out by Vijay ji and even Chaitanya ji, is there something like new mind, or the old mind itself got free from the old bondage it has? We normally see that all the personality of a person, even Krishnamurti or anybody, is just the extension of its psychological traits or parameters or individuality. That individuality remains there even after the enlightenment. So when the individuality remains there, but a thought structure is just the extension of that personality or the parameters, psychological parameters. So can we say that mind really becomes new, or just it the awakened awareness is there and expansion of the awareness is there? Harshad ji. We are not able to listen you, sir. Please unmute yourself.
You have to unmute yourself, Harshad ji.
Harshad sir, you have to unmute yourself. I think he is not. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
So your question is whether this new mind is the extension of the old mind. That is what are you saying?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. This new mind is actually, as I said, old mind is like a two-dimensional surface. And this new mind is the third dimension, which can look at the two-dimensional plane of thinking, reacting, and all that. So this new mind has no content. It has no thinking, whereas the old mind has some content. There are some memories, experience, and all that is there, dualities. But this new mind is completely different which can look at the old mind clearly. But the old mind has no clue about what is this new mind. It can just imagine that there is something new mind, but it is not like that. So when Krishnaji was talking to students and he was telling students, look at that tree, can you look at it without thinking, without images? And then one student, he asked Krishnaji, can you do it? And Krishnaji said, of course, without, otherwise I will not be talking about this thing. So this is something, a person in whom such a thing has happened, such a person can speak authentically about this new dimension. But people in whom such a thing has not happened, they will have many doubts, many questions, and they will keep on thinking about it. But still, if they keep on thinking about it, they are still in the same plane. So this coming out from the two-dimensional plane of thinking is called awareness. And that awareness has no content. It can just look everything very clearly, very fresh, very new, whether it is a tree or a human being. So just like a person who has never tasted mango and you describe this mango tastes like this or sugar, but if a person has not experienced, then will not understand. So this is something one has to feel it within oneself, and then one can even talk with Krishna ji about this thing authentically. Will listen carefully, everybody, not only Krishna ji. One can listen to other people also very, very attentively without thinking. So I think that was the difference between Krishnaji and David Bohm, that Krishnaji was just listening without thinking, but David Bohm, I feel that he was not in that plane in which Krishnamurti was there. So he had many doubts, many questions, and he was trying to understand. But a person who is in this plane, there is no trying to understand. Either you see it or you don't see it. So okay, I've talked. Thank you.
Pradeep ji, please go on.
Am I audible, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, you are audible.
Okay. To me, what we are talking and listening to is the projection and outcome of the old mind only. Or someone can blame that, or someone can claim that I am talking from a new mind. So this is a projection of a new old mind only, with wishful thinking and a lot of imagination involved in it. Similar words, same words in the books as well as in the lectures and discussions, the same words are coming repetitiously again and again to explain something which is a part of the wishful thinking of the old mind. This is what I think.
Yeah.
The title, a topic like this is selected by the old mind only. Old mind only to get some sort of relief from this thing and imagining a freedom which may be there when we are out of this rut of words and these things. And the newness is always associated with the observer, that is the individual, and that varies with the individual. For me, something may be new. For others, it may be something different that is called new. Such things, when we almost always talk and listen in fragments, true and false, outer and inner, old and new, time and timeless, presence and absence, me and the other. So right in the beginning, when we start a dialogue or listen to something, there is a fragmentation, and we struggle with these words. Some of them opposite straight away, some of them not so opposite, but they are there. They fragment, they create fragmentation to make something simple and whole. Ultimate thing is that we have to attain the whole mind through fragments. Because this is what I think, that's why time has not helped in solving these problems. Time has not helped. So awareness and all these words, when nothing is there, empty mind, who is suggesting these things? If not the old mind suffering because of some unknown reasons, and then imagining. And somebody has assured, maybe a seer, we can call him a seer or a messiah or whatever it is, that it is possible. It is possible. Then we are struggling with words and assurances. So this is what I feel right now. Living my daily life, reading, trying to understand everything what must be there. My imagination of the old mind only. I have been listening with the old mind only. So this is what I feel. That's why it has become so difficult. Words have not helped. But we feel like discussing this again and again and again and again with the similar words and the same words, with different rhymes and rhythms. But the problem remains there only, beautifully. This unknown keeps me really in that interesting phase. What must be there? What must be there? So this is what I feel, honestly. Thank you very much for giving me this space and time.
Anand sir, you wanted to ask
yes,
something?
Yes, sir.
Yes, please.
I mean, I'm just making an observation. When I call it the old mind and the new mind, is there anything as old mind and new mind? Mind is always in the now. Mind is always in the present. Mind is limitless. Whereas the brain is limited. Brain is the content of consciousness. Brain contains all your anger, jealousy, fear, and so on. For millions of years, man has remained same. There has been no transformation. There has been no change. He continues to be violent. He continues to be greedy, jealous, and all that. There has been technological changes. There's a change in science, technology, space, and things like that. But man has not changed. So when I say old mind and new mind, is it not a misconception, or I'm misleading? Kay did clarify on this many a times when he spoke about the mind. He said it is the brain. So can I understand what is happening to the humanity on this planet is because of the brain remains as it was million years back. There's been no change. So to bring about this change in the human being, he says there has to be a new brain. But I fail to understand that we are confusing the brain and the mind. So, and having a discussion on old brain, old mind, I'm questioning that. So that's about all. Nothing more than that.
Mr. Tarun Kumar. Tarun Kumar, please go on.
Yes, sir. The subject today is the game of focus. Where you focus, that decides your mindset. And the focus is the biggest freedom, rewarded to everyone. What to think, when to think, how to think, all these are available choices for everyone. There is as such no old or new mind. Without past experiences and memories, you cannot even recognize and decide anything. You cannot take cognizance of anything. It is the light of hope which creates new ideas, innovations, etc. in mind, but the base used is always past memories and experiences. Hope and courage of letting go anything, any happening, brings lightness in mind, but ultimately it depends upon your focusing efforts. This is all what I would like to say about this.
Thank you, Tarun.
Hmm.
Harshad sir,
They-
you wanted to
say-
comment?
Yes.
Yeah, please go on.
Yes, in our school, students study many subjects through the mind, like physics, chemistry, biology, and they are using the mind to study these subjects. It's a knowledge of the world which is outside there, about various elements and all that machines. But when the mind becomes very curious about looking at itself, now in looking at itself, the mind looking at itself, there is no duality. But when the mind is studying the subjects, the things outside world, there is a duality between that is the object and I am the subject. But when I become very curious to look at the mind itself, there is no duality. The object and the subject are one, like observer and the observed are one. And so only people who are really deeply interested in looking at their own mind, not through the words of any teacher, but just want to be very curious and look, then there is a possibility of something, some changes begin to happen in the body and also in the brain. So a brain becomes very vibrant, and that changes the way at one looks at everything, even thinking as well as the objects, and one can function very efficiently in any field with this kind of new change or transformation happening within the brain and the body. So humanity, like some people, like Buddha or Krishnamurti, they have experienced something very beautiful, and that's why they are very passionate. They go around and like to talk about that there is a possibility for human beings to come upon this new dimension where it brings real happiness, love, beauty. All that, these are not just the words, but when such a thing happens in a human being, then that person feels that how beautiful the sunset or the stars, like that is what Buddha saw after enlightenment. When he opened the eyes early in the morning, he looked at the morning star and he felt that he had not looked like that star before. So, and this is a permanent kind of a change. It's not temporary, because some people, they take LSD and they begin to see the world in a different way, and because there are some changes happening in the brain. But these spiritual people, th- their brain changes not through chemicals, but by this looking inward. And when they really begin to see something happening within, something new within the body and the brain, then they get some clarity. And with that clarity, they can help other human beings who have problems of mental problems. Sometimes they even don't talk, but they say very little thing, and that helps some people. So it is not the words which matters, but what is behind the word, And when some person like Krishnamurti speaks, behind the word there is something, some energy coming, and sensitive people can become very curious, and then they begin to look within themselves, forgetting what Krishnamurti has said. Then there is a possibility of some newness happening within the brain. And that is what Krishnaji wanted to create, a new brain in teachers and students of his schools and also in humanity. Okay, I have finished.
So Desna wanted to ask a question. Please, question, so
Yeah,
Desna ji.
it's a question as well as I can only observe myself. I have an old mind in the sense that I am often caught up in patterns of pleasure, success, then competition, in the sense that when I observe myself, suppose the neighbor has gone for a vacation to Goa, immediately, even if I don't want, the comparison comes that, okay, I didn't go anywhere for holidays, they have gone. So, and all these patterns I see, I mean, I understand more intellectually that there is some fear in me, fear of losing my job, or in old age something will happen. So I have to work more now, more and more, so that, old age I have enough money, or I go after pleasure. Even I sometimes make nature like I have to go to a natural place, otherwise something will happen. So there's a lot of fear. I feel that. So I ask myself as well as others, is it possible for the mind to live entirely without fear? I mean, deep down, there is a lot of fear, but deep down, I cannot reach. So I keep asking myself, as well as I ask others, is it possible for the mind to live without fear at all?
Yes.
Yes.
Fear comes from thinking only. So as long as we are in the plane of thinking, not only fear, but many things, jealousy or anger and so many problems, it comes from thinking only. So thinking is the source of all problems. And only when a person can come out from thinking by some way, then he can see very clearly that thinking is creating all these problems.
Sir, here I would like to submit, fear doesn't arise only because of the thinking. It is a natural process by birth in every living thing.
There is a psychological fear, and then there is that real fear, or there is the instinct for survival of the body, and then there is what we have developed is instinct of survival of the ego, the me, which is a product of thinking only.
Sir, the solution also arises out of thinking. It not only generates always the fear, many people have the solutions for the fear with thinking only.
It's not possible, I think.
Direction of thinking only.
I
Fear
have a
is
doubt.
somewhere deep down. I mean, does the mind have the capability to? I mean, the mind has a nature of being fearful. I think
It's not the mind,
deeply
it's
aware.
the brain.
It's a brain.
I mean, there's a difference between the mind and the brain. The mind is always in the now. It's in the present. It holds love. It is limitless. When I say a student uses mind, I question that. And when I want to say what Buddha did and what Krishnamurti did, I'm imitating them. Can I see that that's a form of violence too? Can I understand that? And if I keep on repeating that my mind is the brain is the mind, there's no understanding. Krishnamurti also made it very clear. He said many places he has used the word mind. In fact, he means it's the brain. And the old brain is causing all the problems in this world. Your problem, my problem, and everybody's problem. That's the world's problem. He says, can there be a new mind? That is the question mark. Immediately I jump to that I should be the new brain. See how quickly I come to my conclusion, how quickly I want answers, how quickly I make positive assertions. Can I look at that? All that is authority. Can I see my own authority first before seeing what Buddha saw or what Krishnamurti saw? Can I see my own authority? Is the question, sir.
Okay.
May I say something?
Hello.
Sushilji.
Time, yeah.
May I
Chhabra ji, please go on.
Yeah, just a quick, a bit of clarification. I think with regard to these words, brain and mind, Krishnanji has been very flexible about use of words because he never wanted anybody to get stuck with words. Always discover the meaning, explore the meaning, through direct involvement, direct perception and all. So, and he's also used brain and mind as synonyms or also as something different. He's also said mind is out there. So mind out there, that is, you don't believe it, you question it, skeptical, but listen to it, consider it, something like that. So he has used brain and mind in different ways, like as synonyms and also as different. He will use many words like that. In that book, by Friedrich Roe, he's using the word indifference in two different opposite meanings. So it's a very, it's always, it's important to explore and not get stuck with any word. So that's, I think, one thing. And this is also for this idea, this Sureshna's question about, fear. See, the thinker, the problem is thinking is not seen as a process, whereas this process creates a thinker. And that's, I think, again, one of those fundamental difficulties that we don't see that it's thinking as it's a machine, thinking machine. It's a process. And that creates all this and creates one of the creations is thinker. And we take it for granted. We don't even consider to explore, question, and see the falseness of it or truth in it, So if the process is seeing itself as process, see what happens, It's something to experiment with, to live with,
Yeah, my view, I also want to express my views on this. As Krishnamurti said, one has to remain in such case with the fear energy. If it remains with the fear energy in meditation, then it gets diluted and there is a possibility that the person can be free of this energy, fear energy, which is accumulated over the years. What do you have to say, Harshad sir?
Sir, can I observe that I don't remain with it? When I say I should remain with it, I have gone to the becoming process. All the time I'm in the becoming process. Can I observe that is the question, sir?
Yeah, the idea of questioning is to remain with it. I mean, there is fear. So I want to remain with it. That's why I keep questioning. Or maybe, I don't know.
No, if you remain with it without any thought, then there is
Mr.
a possibility
Wagmare, time has gone. Sir, it is already 7:37. We have to finish at 7:30. 7 minutes
final
over.
conclusion from
So
Harshad
please.
sir.
Okay.
Final wordings from Harshad sir on this.
Yeah.
Wording is final. But still, you can have.
Right. Okay,
and
the
followed
brain.
by Chaitanya, sir. Followed by.
Yes. Okay. The brain is a material thing. It has a structure. The mind is not we don't know actually this thinking which goes on, which which happens because there is a memory, experience, language, and due to that thinking which happens, that we call as mind. And brain is something which is physical. It's a biological thing. Brain can be studied by the scientists, but they don't know really what the correspondence is between the brain and the mind. And when the mind is actually not has been understood, it's not localized anywhere. You can't say that the mind exists at this this place or that place. So this is a mystery, you know. And we, if we have come to something beyond thinking, maybe a little bit we can see how this thinking arising and creating many problems, how we get angry or fear comes. All these things can be seen when there is this new dimension which comes at looking without thinking. So that is what I have been talking about. Okay, I have finished.
Yes. Should I finish it now?
Yes.
So,
Harshad
Mr.
sir,
Chaitanya, last
I am
word.
finishing it. Last but one or last one?
Last one, Mr.
Anand,
Chaitanya, sir.
last word
Mis-
or last.
Mr. Chaitanya, sir. Mr. Chaitanya.
Oh,
I just wanted to reiterate what Shabraji was saying, that we should not get stuck with words. Krishnaji also uses the word consciousness as a synonym for mind. He talks about two kinds of mind, one which is totally conditioned, the kind of mind that I have, which is totally programmed like a computer. And then he points to the possibility of a mind which is absolutely free, which was his goal when he began his journey in 1929 to set man absolutely free. So, I mean, between these two, one, the mind which is totally conditioned, and the mind which is totally, absolutely free. Uh, that's what we need to understand, because the mind, as I know, is a reality. Perhaps he's inviting us to go beyond this reality. Very word reality comes from thing, something. So mind is a thing. Reality is a thing which has been put together by thought. It's a process of desire. It's a process of becoming. It's a process of time. It's a process of maybe fear that Sudeshna talked about is in the very nature of the mind. And that seems to be the primary movement of this old mind, because Krishnaji makes a very simple statement in one place where he says that happy is the man who is nothing. Now, there is a mind which is something, and there is a truth which is nothing, which is nothing means not a thing. Now, mind as a thing, something that has been put together, is a reality that thought operates on, that thought fabricates, that the thought can reflect on, it can reflect about. Now, beyond this, he is pointing to something which is not none of these things. Now, of course, words are used to assert opinions, words are used to arrive at conclusions, as Varmaji said, but words can also be used very honestly to explore. And I think that's what we try to do here. I'm trapped. You tell me that I'm suffering. I was not aware of this. You come along and tell me that you are actually suffering. You don't know you are suffering. You have an old mind which operates on the basis of what it has gathered, which is a result of gathering. You just come and tell me this. So now I explore what you say. And for exploration, I may use thought, I may use words, or I may turn what you say into a kind of conclusion, another opinion, and start beating drums about it. Now, what I do with words is important. What I do with thoughts is more important. So, words can be very unfortunate, but words can also be used for honest, serious exploration into the nature of these fundamental questions.
Sir, when you say what I do is important, then the I is important in this.
No, again, I said I, but I don't know whether I have a better word to replace I with. So I just expressed that. I means, yes, this person as an entity wanting to explore something which may be beyond its whole structure. But I'm again saying it's just a word. Let's not stick to words only. Because we have to use words. That's why we organize this dialogue every week, have discussions, we use words, we use thoughts, but are we really identifying with these words and thoughts? Do we attach a lot of importance to it? It's something that we have to ask ourselves.
Sir, JK talked about the mutation of brain cells, not mutation of mind. Brain cells. Immediately, if you can see something as true, it transforms it, and that is what he calls.
I think to the extent to which I
Sir,
understand
it is already
what he says.
7:45. Should we end it? Should we end it?
Chaitanya
Sir, it is already
Yes,
7:40.
yes.
It is 7:45. So should we end it now?
With a question.
Stretching for 15 minutes.
No, I just want to end it with a question. When he says the word mind, does he mean the part of brain which is conditioned? That's all. Just a question. When he says mind, does he mean the brain, the part of the brain which is programmed, which is conditioned? Does he mean mind? When he says mind, does he mean that? That's all.
That is what in fact I said, so many times when I use the word mind, he means the brain. He clarified on that.
The conditioned brain.
Yes. Mind, when I say mind is limitless, mind can hold love, but not the brain. Kay has very clearly has stated that it is limitless, whereas mind is limited. Mind seeking security, therefore it is limited.
Yes.
So can I see that the moment I say, and also when he said the mutation in the brain cells, it's talking about the brain.
Yes.
The brain, the mind is of the brain, but there's no connection. The mind can connect to the brain, but the brain cannot connect to the mind.
Yes.
These are his words.
Yes. Yes.
So yes, sir.
Please listen me. Please let me finish this. Please, with mind or brain, time is over, sir. It is over by 16 minutes. So let us finish it. You will continue. You may continue it next time.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank
It
you.
is endless. Endless.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.